Hey guys, this is Eckhart's Ladder. Hello and welcome to another video, and as I covered in yesterday's upload, this will be a rambling video. Basically, I'm going to talk over some recently captured Star Wars Squadrons content, and I just recommend maybe you guys either enjoy the gameplay or do something else as you're listening. And this is how videos are going to be for the next little while, but watch yesterday's video if you want to learn more. Anyway, I want to talk about Chapter 10 of The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 2. So if you haven't watched that yet, spoilers are ahead, albeit some pretty minor ones. This isn't anything that changes The Mandalorian forever, at least for most people. So with that said, let's talk about Chapter 10, called The Passenger, because The Mandalorian and of course the child are ferrying a frog lady through space from Tatooine to another planet. The point being that she's got these eggs, which are currently unfertilized, that she needs to get to her partner across space so that she can continue her lineage. Now, it was a little bit unclear to me whether she was the last of her kind or whether these eggs represented the last chance for her to continue her specific bloodline. Either way, these eggs are incredibly important to her. Of course, as the episode progresses, we see Baby Yoda eat 3 or 4 of these eggs. He really likes them. He's always trying to get into the jar. And yeah, this ended up being a very controversial thing, especially on Star Wars Twitter, which I guess is the melting pot. So the issue people had with this episode, I mean, aside from any other content relating specifically to the egg scenes, I guess could be split up into a couple of different sub-issues. First of all, people thought that this was portraying Baby Yoda as evil or cruel. Second, people were saying that this episode didn't handle this topic very well, particularly because of the tone around the eating of the eggs itself, that it was really a horrific moment, but the show treated it as humor. Third, there was, I'd say, maybe a smaller subgroup of people who thought that this was offensive to people dealing with pregnancy issues or miscarriages or whatever else, and let's talk about all of those. First of all, I think it's pretty absurd that anyone would say Baby Yoda is evil because of anything he did in this episode. First of all, let's just be clear, Baby Yoda was not eating any living being. He was eating unfertilized eggs. This is the exact same thing that humans do when they buy eggs from a grocery store. Now, there is more nuance in this case because it's either the last chance for this specific bloodline to continue, or whether it's the last chance for the species, basically because the eggs are incredibly important to the frog lady. Still, Baby Yoda is not only eating something that's non-sentient, but just not alive. You can't expect a literal baby or a Star Wars baby to understand the emotional complexity around this issue, that maybe you shouldn't eat something that's very important to somebody, even though it looks very tasty. This sort of brings me into my next point, in that yeah, that is true. However, does this reflect on The Mandalorian as a parent? Well, probably. I think there's a theme that's going to run through this series about how The Mandalorian is really exposing the child to a lot of violence. We got even little hints of that in episode 1 of this season, where The Mandalorian straight up says that the child has seen worse than anything that will happen in just straight combat. We've seen the child choke Cara Dune. We've seen him do both good and evil, with good being his healing actions, but it's pretty clear that the Mandalorian and his lifestyle are definitely rubbing off on the infant. And, you know, despite how much we all love the relationship between the two characters, the lifestyle the Mandalorian lives is not really compatible with raising a child. So one thing I read quite frequently was that, yeah, this is a theme of the episode, albeit one the episode chooses to ignore in favor of comedy. And I do understand that point. This show played this scene for laughs. We don't really get the emotional weight of anything the child does here, but I will say, let's give it time. This is a show. I do think that the show's been dropping these seeds of the Mandalorian as a father figure in the area he's lacking in. I mean, he certainly got the care for the child and the compassion for the child, but he doesn't have the right environment. I think that's something that we won't see just handled in one episode. That being said, they could have at least touched on the themes a little bit better, I'd guess. I think Phil Shostak, who I should start paying because I've been referencing his tweets a lot on YouTube, he said, "For the record, Chapter 10 of The Mandalorian makes it clear that the frog lady's eggs are unfertilized, like the chicken eggs many of us enjoy," a reference that I made earlier. "But obviously chickens aren't sentient beings, and the child eating the eggs is intentionally disturbing for a comedic effect." Fans of horror know that disturbing things make some of us laugh and some of us squirm, or both. Your mileage may vary. And this kind of resonates with me because I did see a lot of social media reaction to this episode before watching it myself. A lot of people talking about how disturbing Baby Yoda was, and I didn't get that feeling when I watched the episode personally. I thought this was pretty in line with what he'd seen as a character. I think it would have been a lot more messed up if he were actually eating living creatures. This is like eating an ovum or another constituent part. It's not even a fertilized egg, which hasn't taken or anything like that. But yeah, it is disturbing, and I don't think the show is ignoring that. I think the show realizes that, yeah, Baby Yoda, by proper civilized standards, probably shouldn't be doing this, but we've seen a few times now that, he's a predator. He ate that frog in season 1. It's just the way he is, combined with the fact that he's not really getting proper guidance. I think there is a lot to be said, though, about the joke not landing. That was definitely the case for some people, and, that's a criticism that you can definitely levy against the show if that's how you felt. Now, there's also the third issue, one that I don't really want to talk about because I'm not really qualified to, and that's how people dealing with in vitro fertilization or loss of a child or, miscarriages or whatever else felt about this episode, and there's nothing I can say about that. If you felt this way about the episode, then I'm sorry. If you didn't enjoy the show like you usually do because it brought up difficult feelings, I'm really sorry. I understand to a degree the difficulties associated with pregnancy, especially when you're trying to have a kid. But I'd say the show also wasn't trying to be cruel about it. It wasn't trying to be horrific, although it was a disturbing act. We never see the frog lady, for example, react specifically to the eggs being eaten, despite the fact that she obviously would have known that some were gone. But that relates more to the episode's general tone and how it handled the issue rather than anything relating to this specific topic. Just to end this video, if I were to try to summarize a lot of the responses I've gotten when probing people about this issue, I think the main thing was that this was just a weird juxtaposition of cute and horrific. I mean, Baby Yoda is an incredibly cute creature, but he was doing something when viewed by the standards of a sapient species pretty terrible. I mean, these were the last of her brood, but they weren't her children. So a lot of this will come down how you feel. I think this won't really be something remembered about the show for a very long time, especially because this wasn't the most substantial episode of The Mandalorian, or most well-liked, if we're being honest, that there's ever been. But I don't know, I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts down below, and of course your general thoughts on Chapter 10 as well, because this was a somewhat divisive episode. I did my review yesterday, I quite enjoyed it, but your mileage may vary on this issue as a whole. Until next time, guys, have a good one, be safe, and may the Force be with you.